Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 207. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, February the 13th, from the James Strong Studio in western St. Charles County. It's 3 degrees today, right now in East Central Missouri. With snow coming down again for the maybe fourth day out of the last 5 or the fifth day out of the last 6, something like that. Never a lot of snow, but snow nonetheless. Snow that you have to shovel. Snow that must be shoveled or the cars will crush it down on the driveway and turn it into a slick or an ice slick until it warms up. We've had a cold snap here that's beyond belief. The temperature probably will not get above single digits until sometime Tuesday. And it's going to be below zero for at least 2 evenings this week. The polar vortex has enveloped East Central Missouri. Yippee-i-o, ki-yay. The podcast today, I'm going to talk about Area 51 and a period of time in the initial breaking of Area 51 stories before Bob Lazar, before Art Bell talked about it, before George Knapp talked about it, before any of these guys, before Tom DeLonge, before any of these guys in Area 51. I'm going to talk about the first pioneer of Area 51. His name is Glenn Campbell. Not that Glenn Campbell, not the Rhinestone Cowboy Glenn Campbell, Glenncampbell. That Glenn Campbell. Back in the 90s, he was the first pioneer of Area 51. And I've gone back to research a New York Times article back from the early 90s, and we'll talk about that in today's podcast. But before we get to that, just a couple of updates. First of all, update on the Jaguar. Haven't given you an update on the Jaguar in the past few weeks. Haven't done a ton to it. Actually, the last 2 Saturdays, I've been here doing podcasts, not working on the Jaguar because of the extremely cold weather we've had here. The shop is not heated. I do have a portable electric heater that bumps the temperature up maybe 10 degrees in the shop. So if it's 38 degrees in the shop or 38 degrees outside or 38 degrees in the shop and you plug that heater in, you can get it up to about 48 degrees, which is fine. You can work on something if it's 48 degrees. If it's 6 degrees and you bump it up to 16, sorry, you're not going to be working in that. So the last 2 Saturdays, I've kind of not done much. Hopefully next Saturday, the forecast is for 40 degrees. So hopefully I'll get a chance to work on it next Saturday. I've taken out most of the interior work, most of the molding, most of the supports, most of the seats that I could take out, the back seats, because you don't have to crawl underneath the vehicle to do that. Most of the interior has been taken out. Still have to take out the moonroof, the dash, that sort of thing. But the rest of the materials on the interior have been taken out. 2 of the sill plates have to be taken out yet because the bolts have totally rusted and they have to be drilled out and pried out, and that's going to take some time. I've got 2 of the 4 windows that I have to take out of the car as well. But there's progress, slow but sure progress on the restoration of the 1951 Jaguar Mark 7. Also this week, I did something I haven't done for a long time. And that is I had a Facebook discussion online. I've basically backed off from those. I enjoy discussions. I don't enjoy arguments, and there is a difference. A discussion is when you have 2 people or more, a group of people, I will say, of differing opinions, and you give your point, they give their point. You discuss the merits of both, and after a civil exchange, you part ways. It's called a discussion. When you call names, when you throw bombs, when you insult people, that's not a discussion. That's something that 12-year-olds do, and I refuse to get involved with something like that. And the Facebook post I put out there this week, first time in a long time I've done something like this, but I thought, you know what, let's just try it again, see if people have grown up. It had to do with, it was a meme somebody threw out, and I love memes if they're done correctly. And this was a meme of a gentleman washing his greasy hands, and it said basically, it pointed out the irony of people who can't pay their student loans. They want them forgiven and paid for by people who have blue-collar jobs and were too poor to get student loans to begin with. And I posted that. And so we had a nice discussion as to the merits of student loans. Some people saw the value in that meme. Some people thought that the government just needs to pay for, or I should say, forgive the student loans of people, because if we can buy this, we can buy that. Which was fine, because that's what a discussion is. It's a what I want to say. It's a bunch of points that are different, and you discuss the merits of your beliefs. And for the most part, it was fine. There was some name calling, but just nobody name calling me, and of course me not name calling anyone else. I don't play those games, but there was some name calling of other people towards other people who were commenting. Names like Nazi, socialist. Okay. There's no room for that in a discussion. That name calling does nothing in a discussion. And I'll give you, I guess, a piece of advice, or perhaps just a data point. If you're going to have a discussion with me, I will listen to you all day long, even if I don't agree with your point, even if I think your point is misguided, even if I think that you haven't thought through your point. I will still have a discussion with you. But when you start calling names, that's an indicator to me that you have no more, you have nothing else to add to the discussion. I know you are, but what am I? You're a Nazi. You're a fill in the blank. When you start calling names like that, that means you're not thinking anymore. And if you don't think, you're a fool. And I do not suffer well the folly of fools. So actually the discussion went pretty well. Perhaps I'll try it again sometime down the road. I love to discuss things with people. I will not argue things with fools. Okay, the podcast today. The first Area 51 pioneer, his name was Glenn Campbell. And I started thinking about Glenn Campbell from back in the early 1990s. I first got turned on by this guy. And he was the first guy to actually start looking into and documenting things in Area 51, in the Nevada desert, in the top secret base that didn't exist. And I got into this because there was a ad on the paper. Actually, it was an article written by George Knapp in a publication called Mystery Wire. And it had to do with the ranch that sits adjacent to the Area 51 site. It's for sale. Now, how do you get to Area 51? Well, you basically take Nevada State Highway 375 west, and you turn left at the black mailbox. Take that road to the signs that say you can't go any further, and you're there, friends. You're there. Now, the article by George Knapp started off by saying, have you ever wanted to buy a ranch that allows you to access the top secret Area 51 military base? Then you're going to need to dig out your checkbook, because the Medlin Ranch is for sale. That's Steve Medlin. Steve Medlin bought that ranch back in the early 1970s, back when it was there was nothing there. It was just desert. No water, no electricity, no nothing. And he and his wife built that thing into a working cattle ranch. Okay? He's older now, much older, and it's time to sell it. And it's for sale. In fact, I will read the actual ad on ranchbroker.com. The ad says, a year-round cattle ranch, approximately 140 miles north of Las Vegas, Nevada, 40 acres deeded plus 40 acres patent claims. Cattle run outside year-round. There are several improvements on grazing allotments, as in water features and branding corrals. The main property has a nice feedlot pen, or has nice feedlot pens, for weaning and shipping calves and cattle. 5,600 square foot barn for hay, over 1,200 square foot barn and foot shop. Ranch features 2 newer manufactured homes, the large main home, which includes 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and a wraparound deck. Other home features, of course. It would make a great guest house for the second home. You also have BLM land in which you can graze your cattle. You have a permit for 250 head on Area 51 land. The ranch comes with cattle and equipment. The ranch runs about 750 head total. $4.5 million. Now, one of the interesting pieces of information there is you can go ahead and actually go onto Area 51, restricted areas, restricted space, if you own this piece of land. Because Steve Medlin had grazing rights that went on to Area 51. That was part of the BLM deal. So if his cattle, if he needs to see to the cattle that have grazed into the Area 51 forbidden area, he gets on a radio, a special radio he has. He calls the camo dudes, the guys who watch out, identifies himself, probably with a password, says he needs to go on and take care of the cattle. They watch him, he does his thing, and then he leaves. Now you think to yourself, this is 40 acres with another 40-acre claim, 80 acres in the middle of nowhere for a cattle ranch, $4.5 million. That seems like a lot of money for a cattle ranch. But herein lies the rub. It's just not a cattle ranch. It's a cattle ranch that allows the owner to run cattle and be on Area 51 land. That's why it's $4.5 million. Now, nobody has bought it yet. Apparently, there's a deal on it, but that deal has been hung up in escrow since late last year. So maybe it's going to sell, maybe it's not. But that whole story of the land for sale got me thinking about Glenn Campbell, the first Area 51 pioneer. If you want to research him, you have to Google his name and you have to put Area 51 behind it. Other than that, if you don't do that, it's going to spell his name wrong and you're going to get the Rhinestone Cowboy no matter what you do on Google, okay? But if you Google his name, GLENNCAMPBELL, Area 51, you get all the information you want about Glenn Campbell, the first Area 51 pioneer. Now again, before Bob Lazar, before George Knapp, before Tom DeLonge, there was Glenn Campbell. He published the Area 51 Viewer Guide, and he set up shop in Rachel, Nevada. He called it the Area 51 Research Center. He actually set up shop there. And I started researching him earlier this week, and I stumbled upon an article from June 26th, 1994, and was written by Donovan Webster from the New York Times. It was a good article. I read the article, and basically that's where I've gotten today's essay from, 90% of it from this article. And it talks about how the author, Donovan Webster, and a photographer, Mark Richards, went with Campbell, met him in Rachel, Nevada, at his Area 51 Research Center, which was his double-wide trailer that he was renting. And they went with him on an adventure to Area 51. And it talks about, the story starts off with Glenn Campbell standing atop a long ridge in the deepest Nevada outback. And it's shortly after sunrise, mid-spring morning. The valley ahead of Campbell, 12 miles downhill to the west, was one of the last great riddles of the Cold War of America. And it was a long valley floor. It was arranged across a pale alkaline silt lake bed, dry lake bed. And there sits a test facility so secret that at that time the United States government wouldn't even admit its existence. There it is, said Campbell, the base that doesn't exist, pointing to the boxy buildings and runways In the distance, Campbell, who's a balding 35-year-old guy dressed in desert-colored military fatigues, he tilts his camouflage blotchy cap back on his head. He lifts a pair of binoculars and stares, lowering the field glasses. It's the same top-secret air base that was here last week. Nothing has changed.